The room was silent. World leaders stared at the large screen, waiting for the response to be confirmed. The message had already gone out, sent by a small group of human officials without asking the rest of the world. Now it was too late to take it back. Across the planet, people waited. News channels, social media, and radios all repeated the same thing. The message was just one word, and that word was no. In a distant part of the galaxy, the Galactic Council received the reply. A dozen alien species sat together in their great hall, looking at the glowing letters that had appeared in their universal language. No, that was it. The room filled with whispers, then with loud voices. Many could not believe it. Some laughed, thinking it was a human mistake. Others became angry. No species had ever said no to the Council's offer before. It was not just disrespect, it was dangerous. The Council's leader, a tall alien with silver skin and glowing eyes, stood up slowly. His voice echoed in the hall. "This is not a joke. This is a challenge." He looked around. If humans say no, they must be ready for the consequences. On Earth, people were both scared and proud. Some said the humans had made a mistake. They said the aliens would attack now, and Earth would be destroyed. Others believed it was a brave move. "We are not slaves," said one woman on the news. "We decide our own future." Meanwhile, the people who sent the message, military leaders, scientists, and a few secret world advisors, were already preparing for what might come next. They knew the Council would not let this go, but they had a reason for saying no, a reason they hadn't shared with the rest of the world. Deep underground, far away from the public, hidden research centers had been working for years on something strange, something powerful. And it all started with a virus that came from space. That virus had arrived many years ago inside a fallen asteroid. At first, people feared it would kill them. But it didn't. It changed them. Not everyone, but a few. These few became stronger, faster, and smarter. Their bodies healed quickly. Their minds worked differently. The scientists called it Project Ascend. They kept it secret because they knew the world wasn't ready. And more than that, they knew the Council must never find out. Back in space, the Council sent small ships to Earth's orbit. They didn't attack. They just watched. They wanted to see if humans were truly ready to stand alone. Inside one of those ships, an alien captain watched videos of humans. He saw their history, full of war, pain, and destruction. But he also saw something else. Humans never gave up. Even in their darkest times, they kept fighting, kept growing. He turned to his second-in-command. "They are not what we thought," he said. "They may be more dangerous than we believed." On Earth, the rejects were being trained. They were the humans changed by the virus. Each one had a gift. One could control machines with his mind. Another could see across great distances. A girl named Lyra could move faster than sound. Their leader, Colonel Reed, was a quiet man with sharp eyes. He had seen the Council's power before. He had once visited a planet that joined them. That planet no longer had a voice of its own. The Council controlled everything. "They smile while putting chains around your neck," he told his team. "That's why we said no." The rejects trained in secret, learning how to use their powers, how to fight together, how to stop the Council if it ever came to war. They knew they were Earth's last hope. Normal weapons would not work against the Council's technology, but the virus had changed things. Now humans had a chance. Back in space, the Council grew restless. Some wanted to attack now. Others thought it better to talk again, to offer a second chance. The silver-skinned leader raised his hand. "No second chances," he said. "They have chosen." He looked at the screen showing Earth. "They think they are ready. Let us see if they truly are." Colonel Reed stood in front of a small group of world leaders. He showed them proof of the Council's past actions. Planets turned into farms. Civilizations forced to follow rules not their own. He told them everything. The virus, the powers, The truth. Some leaders were shocked. Some were angry they had been kept in the dark. But when they saw the evidence, they understood. They gave us a choice, Colonel Reed said. And we answered. Now we must live with that choice. The world began to change. Secret teams moved into position. Satellites were reprogrammed. New weapons were prepared. And still the Council's ships waited in orbit, silent, like vultures in the sky. Humanity had spoken with one word. Now the galaxy was watching. Would Earth survive what came next? Or would that one word be its end? Days passed, but the Council's ships in orbit did not move. They hovered silently above Earth, watching. People below went on with their lives, but the fear never left. Everyone kept looking up at the sky. Schools closed. Shops stayed empty. News reports repeated the same message. We said no, and now they wait. No one knew what the aliens were planning, but everyone felt something was coming. In a hidden underground base beneath the Rocky Mountains, Colonel Reed walked through a long metal hallway. The lights above flickered as he entered the command room. Large screens showed live feeds from orbit. Others displayed movement patterns of Council drones near Earth's moon. He turned to Lyra, the fast-moving girl who now worked as his top scout. "Any changes?" he asked. She shook her head. "They're still watching us. But I saw something new. A signal, short, hidden, strange." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Show me." She brought it up on the screen. It was a weak signal, almost invisible under normal scans. It was a message from one of the Council's small ships, sent not to the main fleet, but to someone on Earth. That meant there was a spy. The Council had agents here. Reed's jaw tightened. They're not just watching us. They're listening too. Far across the world, in a tall glass building in Tokyo, a man named Dr. Kenji sat at his desk, pretending to work on energy systems. But his real job was more dangerous. He was one of the humans chosen long ago by the Council. They promised him knowledge, power, and safety. All he had to do was help them understand Earth's weaknesses. Now, he had received their secret signal. His eyes glowed faintly as he whispered, "They are ready. The time has come." Back in the underground base, Reed stood before the rejects. "We are being watched from above," he said. "And from below." He explained the hidden message, the possible spy, and what it meant. The team members exchanged nervous glances. "They won't wait much longer," Lyra said. "They're testing us." Reed nodded. "That's why we have to act first." He showed them a plan. It wasn't an attack, but a warning. They would send a small ship close to the Council fleet, just near enough to show their strength. On board, they would release a pulse, a signal built using the same alien virus that changed the rejects. It wouldn't hurt anyone, but it would show something terrifying, that humans had learned to use the virus as a weapon. The team moved quickly. The small ship, named Dare, was launched within hours. It flew silently into space, cloaked from Council sensors. On board was only one person, Dax, a reject with the ability to survive in space without a suit. His body had adapted beyond anything human. He sat calmly as the ship reached orbit. "Ready to send the pulse," he said over the comm. Reed gave the order. "Show them what we are now." The signal was released. It traveled through space like a wave, invisible to human eyes but bright and loud to Council sensors. The alien ships jerked suddenly, their systems reacting with confusion. Inside the Council's lead ship, alarms rang out. Technicians shouted. Their computers showed strange symbols, human-made, but with virus energy behind them. "They've used it," one alien officer said. "The virus. They've turned it into a weapon." The Council leader stood still, watching the wave hit the edge of his ship. For a moment, the lights flickered. Then everything returned to normal. He looked at the Earth below and said, "They are not the same as before." Back on Earth, Dax returned safely. Reed watched the data come in. The pulse had done its job. The aliens were scared now. They knew humans were no longer just a small planet. They were something new, something the Council couldn't fully understand. But fear also brings danger. The Council now saw Earth as a possible threat, not just a stubborn world. Some of their leaders began to speak of war. Others whispered about sending an observer team, a polite name for a spy group. The silver-skinned leader raised a hand once more and made a decision. "Prepare the peace team," he said. "We will talk with them, face to face." Reed saw the transmission. A message was sent to all major Earth stations. The Council wanted to meet. They would land a small team on Earth in 2 days. They said it was peaceful. But Reed had seen their kind before. "They smile," he said again, "but behind the smile is a blade." The rejects began preparing. They would be watching the alien team closely. One wrong move, and it would be war. In the shadows of Earth, Dr. Kenji received a new signal. His time had come. He was to help the alien team when they arrived. He stood up, fixed his coat, and whispered to himself, "Soon, they will see. Soon, they will know who really holds the power." And above the blue planet, stars blinked quietly as a new chapter of human history began to unfold, one filled with danger, secrets, and power that even the oldest species in the galaxy did not expect. The day of the alien team's arrival was quiet, almost too quiet. All across the world, cities waited in silence. People stayed inside, watching the sky. News channels ran live footage of the Council ship entering Earth's atmosphere. It moved slowly, like a giant shadow across the clouds, and then came to a stop over a secured landing zone in Iceland. The ship looked smooth and silver, like a living creature, humming softly in the cold air. Inside the ship, 6 alien beings stood in a circle. Each was different, some tall with long arms, others short with glowing eyes. They had come to study the humans, to test them, and if needed, to start the process of control. One of them, named Varnak, was their leader. He had studied Earth for years. He believed humans were clever, but not wise, brave, but not united. He thought they could be broken. But he was wrong. A group of world leaders waited near the landing site. They had been told to smile, speak kindly, and listen. But Colonel Reed had a different idea. He stood in a nearby control room with the rejects watching everything on screens. "They came to talk," he said, "but they're here to measure us, to see how weak we are." Lyra stood next to him. "They're going to be surprised," she said with a grin. What the aliens didn't know was that humans were already changing. The virus from the asteroid had done something no one expected. It didn't hurt people, it helped them. Not all, but enough. The ones who were touched by it developed new abilities. Some could sense danger before it happened. Others could lift heavy objects without touching them. Some could even heal others with a single touch. For a long time, the virus had been feared. Scientists thought it might destroy humanity. Governments tried to hide it. But now, the virus had become Earth's greatest secret and greatest strength. Years ago, Colonel Reed was one of the first to see the truth. He met a boy who could survive fire. He met a girl who could hear voices from far away. These children were scared, confused, but powerful. Reed didn't turn them in. He trained them. He taught them control, teamwork, and how to hide. These were the first rejects. They took the name with pride, because the Council would never accept what they had become. They were too different now. The alien team stepped out of their ship and onto Earth's soil. The cold wind blew across their robes, but they didn't feel it. Varnak looked around and gave a small smile. "Primitive, but beautiful," he said. A translator device on his shoulder turned his words into English. He walked toward the human leaders and gave a short bow. "We are here to learn, to help, to guide." Everyone smiled politely. They offered gifts. They gave speeches. But in the background, hidden cameras and secret devices recorded everything. Reed and his team watched closely. Lyra pointed at one of the aliens. "He's scanning their minds," she said. "I can feel it." Reed nodded. "They're not here to help. They're here to pick apart our leaders one by one." Meanwhile, deep in a lab below the surface, scientists ran final tests on the virus. They had turned it into something else, a living code that could change cells, improve them, even repair them. Dr. Mali, the head of the lab, looked at the results. "It's not just evolution," she whispered. "It's a jump. We are not the same anymore." One of the rejects, a young man named Jace, stood near her. His skin glowed faintly under the lab lights. "Are we still human?" he asked softly. Dr. Mali smiled. "We are more." That evening, the council team asked to visit one of Earth's medical centers. It was a test. They wanted to see if humans could handle disease and healing without alien help. They were about to be surprised. A young girl lay in the hospital, dying from a rare sickness. The doctors stood helpless. But then, a nurse called for someone special, another child touched by the virus. He entered the room, held the girl's hand, and within minutes, her heartbeat grew stronger. The aliens watched with quiet shock. This was not something humans were supposed to be able to do. Varnak narrowed his eyes. "This is not natural. This is something else." The next day, the council team returned to their ship. They said nothing, but their eyes told the truth. They had seen enough. Back at the base, Reed received a coded message from one of his spies inside the council network. It was short but clear. "They fear what we are becoming." He turned to the rejects. "Good," he said. "Let them fear us." In the sky above, the alien ship rose slowly and returned to orbit. But it did not leave. More ships began to arrive. Quiet ones, dark ones, the kind used in secret wars. The council had made a decision. Earth could not be left alone. It was changing too fast, growing too strong. They would act soon. But they were too late. The humans were ready. The world held its breath. The alien fleet that had once hovered silently in orbit had grown larger. The council's ships, now dozens strong, filled the sky. The peaceful meeting had turned into something else, something darker. Earth was not ready for war, also it seemed, but humans had a secret weapon, and they were no longer afraid to use it. The Galactic Council wasn't just observing anymore. They were preparing. Every alien ship in the fleet was loaded with advanced weapons, ready to strike. They believed that the humans were weak, that their evolution was a fluke. What the Council didn't know was that Earth had already built its own defense system, one based on the virus that had transformed humanity. Colonel Reed sat in the control room with the rejects. They could see the alien fleet moving closer, the dark shadows of the ships growing larger on the screens. The lights in the room flickered briefly, and Reed's voice was calm but firm. "This is it, the final test. We can't afford to lose this battle. We fight with everything we have." Lyra stood by the window, looking up at the sky. "We don't need to lose. We just need to show them that we're stronger than they think." The rejection of the Council had only been the beginning. Now the real war was about to begin. The Council had sent its peace team, under the guise of diplomacy, but Reed knew better. It was a trap. They weren't interested in peace. They'd wanted to control Earth. And now that the humans had shown their hand, demonstrating just how much they had evolved, the aliens felt threatened. "We're not fighting for Earth alone anymore," Reed said, turning to the group. "We're fighting for every species that the Council has enslaved. This battle will determine whether we remain free, or whether we become just another conquered world." The rejects nodded, their faces hardening with determination. Each one of them had a role to play. They weren't just soldiers. They were Earth's last line of defense, and they were ready for anything. As the alien ships began their descent, Reed and the rejects took their positions. They weren't waiting for the aliens to land. They had prepared something much more dangerous. The scientists had been working around the clock to harness the powers of the virus, combining it with technology. The plan was simple: send a pulse that would disrupt the alien ship systems, just long enough to give Earth's forces a chance to strike. But it wasn't just a pulse, it was an EMP with a twist. The virus inside the human cells had become a kind of living energy. When the EMP was activated, it would carry the virus's energy with it, disabling the ship's technology and turning it against them. As the first alien ship touched down, the pulse was released. It shot into the sky like a wave of light, bright and powerful. The alien ships immediately reacted. Their systems began to glitch, their weapons going offline. For the first time, the Council's fleet wasn't in control. Inside the lead alien ship, Varnak stood, his glowing eyes wide in shock. "What is happening?" he shouted. His ship, once flawless, was now filled with errors. The engines sputtered, and the control panels went black. What have they done? The Council's officers scrambled, trying to regain control, but it was no use. The pulse had done its job. The alien ships were disabled, and Earth's forces moved in. Reed's voice crackled through the comms. "Now we take back our world." The first wave of Earth's fighters soared through the sky, armed with weapons that had never been used before. The rejects had all been trained to use alien technology in ways the Council never thought possible. The EMP had only been the beginning. Now they had to finish what they started. The battle in the sky was fierce. Ships fired their weapons, but the humans were faster, more unpredictable. They knew their enemies' weaknesses and used the virus-enhanced technology to outsmart the Council at every turn. The aliens had never faced anything like this. For the first time in centuries, they were losing a fight, and they were losing to a species they once thought weak. Varnak gave a furious command: "Prepare for ground assault. We will take them down on their own planet." He thought that if he could crush Earth's forces on the ground, he would win. But he underestimated the human spirit and their new abilities. As the alien forces landed, they were met by a counterattack that shocked them even more. The rejects, armed with enhanced strength and speed, moved through the chaos like shadows, striking from unexpected angles. The humans fought with an intensity the aliens hadn't anticipated. They were no longer afraid of the Council. They had evolved beyond fear. The Council's forces were pushed back, retreating to their ships. But Earth's fighters didn't let up. They knew this battle was only the beginning. The galaxy was watching, and Earth had shown it would not kneel to anyone, not even the might of the Galactic Council. As the last alien ship lifted off, escaping into space, Reed stood in the command room, breathing heavily. "This isn't over," he said, his voice low but steady. "But we've sent a message. The Council will think twice before they come back." The skies cleared, and Earth's forces began to regroup. The world wasn't safe yet, but it had won its first battle. The Council had underestimated humanity's power, and now they would never forget it. As the humans celebrated their victory, one question lingered in the air. What would the Council do next? The war was far from over, but now Earth had the power to fight back. The battle was over, but the victory felt hollow. The alien ships had retreated, and Earth had won its first real fight. Yet the world remained on edge. The skies were clear, but the future was uncertain. People celebrated in the streets, but there was no joy in their hearts. The Council had retreated, but they had only just begun to understand the humans they had underestimated. Colonel Reed stood on the balcony of the command center, looking out at the city below. The noise of the celebrations filled the air, but his mind was elsewhere. The Council had been forced to retreat this time, but what would happen when they returned? And they would return. He was sure of it. They always did. Lyra joined him, standing silently by his side. She knew what he was thinking. "We won the battle, but not the war," she said softly. Reed nodded. "The Council isn't going to give up. They'll come back stronger, and we need to be ready for them." He turned to face her, his expression hard. "The next time we fight, it could be the last." Far below, The streets were filled with cheering people, their faces full of hope. They didn't know what Reed knew, that the true battle had only just begun. The Council had learned from their mistakes. They had seen what Earth could do, and they wouldn't make the same error again. The war was far from over. In the aftermath of the battle, the rejects were hailed as heroes. They had led the charge against the alien forces, using their enhanced abilities to turn the tide of the battle. But despite their victory, there was no rest for them. They knew the real fight was still ahead. Dr. Malley, the lead scientist, stood in her lab, surrounded by data screens. The virus that had transformed humanity was now more than just a tool of evolution. It had become Earth's greatest weapon. She had been working tirelessly, experimenting with the virus and its effects. She had already seen the changes it made to the human body, how it strengthened, healed, and enhanced it. But there was still so much they didn't understand. Dr. Malley stared at the screen in front of her, watching as the virus's data pulsed rhythmically. "This is just the beginning," she whispered to herself. "We've only scratched the surface of what humanity can become." But even as they celebrated their victory, not everyone was content. Across the world, a new fear began to spread. The Council had not been destroyed, they had simply been pushed back. And in the shadows, other forces were at work. Forces that were not alien, but human. In the underground bunkers that had once served as hiding places for the rejects, a group of human leaders gathered. They had seen the power of the virus, and they knew that if the humans of Earth could become stronger, they could become something more than the aliens ever hoped to control. But there was a question that hung in the air. What price would they pay for this power? One of the leaders, General Harris, spoke first. "We've seen what the rejects can do. We've seen the changes in their bodies. But we're not just talking about evolution. We're talking about creating an army. An army that could take on the Council and anyone else who threatens us." There was a long silence in the room. Everyone knew what the implications were. They weren't just talking about defending Earth anymore. They were talking about becoming something new, something unstoppable. "We need to control the virus," another leader, Dr. Kenji, said quietly. "We need to understand it fully. If we don't, it could destroy us all." "But if we do control it," General Harris replied, his voice firm, "we can make sure humanity will never be weak again. We can make sure that the Council will never have the chance to come back and take over. We'll be ready for them." The room fell silent again as the weight of his words sank in. It was true. The virus had given Earth the power to stand up to the Council. But what would happen when that power was no longer a gift, but a weapon? And who would control it? Reed, far away from the meeting, knew that the future was uncertain. The battle had been won, but Earth had no idea what was coming next. The Council might have retreated, but the universe was vast, and they weren't the only threat. Other species, some worse than the Council, could be watching, waiting, ready to strike. As Reed stayed into the distance, he realized something. Earth had gained power, yes, but with that power came a new kind of responsibility. And the price of that responsibility could be higher than anyone imagined. Suddenly, the comms buzzed. It was Lyra. "Colonel, you need to see this." The Council's retreat was just a distraction. They sent a signal. It's encrypted, but it's clear. Something's coming. Something big. Reed felt a chill run down his spine. He turned and walked quickly to the command center. The war was far from over. In fact, it had just begun.